Hello and welcome to our office hours presentation for today. This is Paul Hoyt. Our office hours presentation is a relaxed, informal mentoring program that we do every Monday at noon Pacific time. All the recordings, slides, and exercises are archived in the members area of our website, and then all of the recordings themselves are available on the YouTube channel at youtube.com/user/Paul Hoyt. The reasons we do the office hours presentations is that I know that being a successful entrepreneur, a successful small business owner can be a great experience, but I also know that it's really tough. You need education, training, tools, and team and mentoring in order to be successful. And I want you to get to know me, because when you get to know me, you will know that first and most importantly, I really do care about you. I want you to succeed in every area of your life, whatever that means to you. I want you to find the greatness, the happiness, the divinity within yourself, and then remember it, embrace it, and live it every single day, as I do. My passion is to increase the survival rate, accelerate the growth rate, and reduce the struggle rate of businesses in America. And my vision is to help millions of CEOs and entrepreneurs accelerate their business growth and experience greater harmony and balance in their lives. You can help by passing the word. If you find these office hours presentations helpful to you, by all means, share the fact that they're available on YouTube and it's free for people to sign up and tune in every single Monday with any of the colleagues that you have, the people next door, the other business owners that you know, etc., because I'm passionate about helping every single one of them. Usually our office hours agenda is an in-depth discussion of a business success principle, followed by closing remarks and special offers, etc., and then open questions and answers and coaching. Today it's going to be all Q&A and coaching, live group coaching. So be thinking about the discussion topics that you would like for us to address and any questions that you might have, and be typing them into the window or raise your hand and we'll take you off mute and allow you to ask those questions to the entire crowd. During the presentation and afterwards, join us with the Awakened CEO communities on both Facebook and LinkedIn. Those links, unfortunately, are wrong. I'm going to change the links in a little bit. We're taking the brilliant business groups in both LinkedIn and on Facebook and renaming them to the Awakened CEO community. Because that's the consistent branding that we're going to move forward with. During the call, I invite you to go to what is now called the Brilliant Business Group on Facebook, and make comments and ask questions and share your takeaways and insights that you get from the call. I'd like to see 20 comments and or likes for those comments in our Facebook group. This Wednesday on July the 8th, we're going to have another Awakened CEO conversation. That's an interactive webinar with this week a special guest, Jeffrey Flam. Jeffrey is a fellow faculty member with me in the CEO space community and has been an extremely successful CEO over the years, having had several different businesses and selling them for millions and millions and millions of dollars. And I'm very excited to have him as my guest this Wednesday, July the 8th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Watch your emails for sign-up information. For those of you who have signed up for the office hours, it doesn't mean that you automatically get in on the Awakened CEO Conversation series. But once you sign up for that series, then we'll make sure to register you for all additional conversations that we have. Today's topic is on just open questions and answers and group coaching. We usually try to take the topic of the day and suggest that it pertains to one or more of the key performance areas of business. But in this particular case, it's anything and everything. You're welcome to ask a question on leadership, marketing, sales, financial management, operations, product development, customer service, anything about business you are welcome to ask a question on. We also try to relate the subject matter of the day to the Awakened CEO system levels of performance, which are mindset, methods, and momentum. We certainly encourage people to have the right frame of mind, to get the right plans, policies, and procedures in place, and then to follow those to get into action and build momentum with your business. And again, in today's conversation, you can ask questions about any one of those different levels of performance in your business. As a reminder, we've had a couple of office hours presentations since our last group coaching call. Office hours 80 was on business risks, and office hours 81 was on the power of why. Just a quick little recap of those two presentations. might stimulate a question or a comment on your behalf. In office hours number 80 on business risk, we talked about primary risks, a bunch of additional risks. We talked about managing risks, and then we summed it up with the bottom line. To remind you, those 6 primary risks, or key man risk, where the risk is that one or more of the really important people at the company might no longer be available. Invention risk, which is the risk that the product or service just might not work at all. Market risk is the risk that the market won't accept your products and services in a quantity and at a price that allows you to make a profit. Business model risk is the risk that you just haven't created a viable business model, that you're not charging enough for your products and services that allow you to create a profitable, sustainable, scalable business. Execution risk means that you usually don't have the people on your team that are necessary in order to actually execute the business model that you have. And expansion risk says, can you really scale it? Do you have enough time and talent? Is the market big enough for you to create a big business around this particular business opportunity? So you may have some questions about the risks in business, or the risks in particular in your business or in a business that you're considering becoming associated with or investing in, and we'd be happy to answer questions on that. Office Hours 81, which was last week, was on the power of why. On the power of why was based on the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. We talked about the author, we talked about his concept of the golden circle, and how he says why is so much more important than how and what when it comes to invoking passion in your team and in your customers and prospects and all of your entire ecosystem. We talked about the language of why, the why of the why, implementing the why and the challenge of success, and summed it up with the bottom line. Just to remind you why the why is so important, it is that our emotional minds are much, much more powerful than is our conscious mind. To touch somebody, to really engage them, to step into your own power and your own passion, and then let that be contagious with other people, you really have to touch their emotions. Because the limbic brain is much more powerful than the neocortex is. That's a lesson throughout the history of sales training, as far as I can tell, is that you want to evoke some sort of passion on the part of your prospects and on the part of your coworkers and your teammates, your investors, anybody that you work with. And the way that you do that is by stepping into your own passion. Because when you step into your own passion, and you can tell I've kind of stepped into mine now about my passion for supporting CEOs and entrepreneurs. When I step into my passion, it gives you permission and inspires you to step into your passion too. And that's the why of the why, and why starting with the why and emphasizing the why is so important to your success in business. With that brief reminder, we're going to focus in on our open questions and answers right now. For those of you who are on the call live, you're welcome to raise your hand, and we'll invite you to ask the question live on the call, or we invite you to type your question into the chat box in your control panel. And when you do that, if you would like the question to be anonymous, you are welcome to just say that, keep it anonymous, and we'll be happy to do so. Because sometimes people want to ask questions on these calls that they would like to hold anonymous because the nature of the question might not be comfortable to them, or it might not be comfortable for somebody on their team who might be listening to the call in some way. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions and answers and discussion topics, and invite us to get started with the first question. Stephanie, do we have a question for today's call? I think you may be on mute, dear. If you're speaking, Stephanie, I cannot hear you. So I'm going to take a look. I know that we had a couple of questions come in via email, and I'm going to take a look at those questions for myself here and maybe ask a question of myself. And Stephanie, I hope you get your mute problem worked out. Here's a question that came in via email. Thinking about the risks in my business makes me stressed out, and I sure don't want to talk about them with others. So do I have to think about those risks and talk about them in business? And the answer is no, you really don't have to, but I think that you're better off when you do so. I'm a big fan of facing the facts. In fact, facing the facts has been a piece of business wisdom that's been around for a very, very long time. In the book Good to Great, it's one of their tenets of being a successful business owner is to face the facts, to face the truth, but remain optimistic anyway. And I certainly encourage that of every business owner, because you can't close the gaps and you can't successfully deal with risk in business unless you are aware of that risk and deal with it. So the good news is that, I don't want you to dwell on it. My rule is that what I call the 5% rule, which is spend about 5% of your time focusing on the problems and the challenges that you have in business, and spend 95% of your time focusing on the solutions and turning your eyes towards what can we do about this. So I do encourage you to spend a little bit of your time, understanding what your risks are and understanding what your gaps are in experience and performance and education. And then 95% of the time that you spend in a developmental process, focused on closing those gaps and reducing those risks and getting the education and the training and the mentoring that you need in order to build up your experience in each one of those areas. So I guess I could be a little bit more direct and say, absolutely, every business owner needs to know what the risks are. They need to know what their gaps are. And I'm a big fan of being open and honest about that with your team, so that your team can understand your passion and can understand the job that's in front of them and can speak up and help you with that. And Stephanie, I don't know if you've gotten your mute problems fixed yet. If you do, I'll invite you to add a little bit to that if you like. And if I don't hear from you in the next few seconds or so, then I will move on to the next question. Stephanie, are you there? I'll take that as a no. She's still not with us, unfortunately. We do have one other question that came in via email, and that question is, I found my passion, but now I'm having problems getting started. What should I do? Well, once a person finds their passion, that can really be very inspirational and can inspire them to take action. But just finding your passion, is not worth much unless you really do take action. You heard me say, if you've tuned into these office hours presentations before, you've heard me say that your success in business is about 1% having an idea, about 2 or 3% about having the opportunity or having the resources and the plan necessary to take advantage of that idea, and it's 97% doing the action, doing the actual work, the actual work day by day to make it happen in business. So by the way, on a weekly basis, that means that 1 hour on Monday morning, you're planning your week, and the other 39 hours or 49 hours or 59 hours, if you happen to be an entrepreneur, that we are actually doing the work of the business. So executing is most important. The executing on business is really, really important to your success in business. If you have found your passion and you are having challenges with execution, it's usually some sort of a fear-based hesitation. And by the way, we all have fears, so to say that we are without fear, I think, is to be probably a little unusual, if not being a little bit unrealistic, and maybe even dishonest with yourself and other people too. So when it comes to fears, the fears of business, sometimes that might be what I call inception anxiety, which is the fear of getting started for fear of doing something wrong. Execution anxiety, which is the fear of actually doing the work for fear of making a mistake and doing something wrong. Or maybe even completion anxiety, which is the fear of completing a project because you don't want to be judged. You don't want somebody to say yes or no or give you a grade on that in some way. So we all have these fears. Sometimes they're little fears and sometimes they're very big fears. Those are 3 pretty common ones: the fear of getting started, the fear of doing the work, and the fear of completing the job. And my general advice when it comes to dealing with those fears is to just take that next step. In our last Awakened CEO conversation webinar that we did a week and a half ago or so, I read a little poem that I wrote, a little insight that I had gathered on taking that next little step. And it was something like, just suck it up and take that first step. It doesn't have to be a big one. Pick up the phone, pick up the pen, get out a sheet of paper, figure out what that next step is, take a breath, make one phone call, send one email, and just get started. And then after you've taken the first step, take another step, and then take another step. And what you find is after time that those steps become a little bit easier. And then you find that the steps become a little bit quicker. And then when you take the ultimate step, you can find out that those steps actually can be a little bit fun. So you can move from a place of being in total shock and paralyzed with resistance to taking that first step to a point of actually enjoying the journey and enjoying taking those steps along the way, just by practicing taking those little steps. So if you have found your passion, but you don't know how to proceed, maybe the next thing for you is to create a plan. I'm a big fan of that. Sometimes, of course, I'm an analyst. That's what I do. Used to be a computer programmer and a project manager for many years early in my career. So to think things through and to create a plan makes me feel safer and more inspired to get after it once I'm pretty sure that I have a decent plan in place, and I know in my heart and in my subconscious mind that it has increased the likelihood of success with me. So I hope that that is helpful to you. If you found your passion and you don't know what to do next, then by all means give us a call. We'd be happy to help you with that plan, or coach you through that process of taking that next step, because that's what we do for our clients. Hopefully that was helpful to you. And I see in my little chat log here that Stephanie may be back with us. Stephanie, are you with us?
I am.
Do you have anything to add to that question about the person who has found their passion but having problems getting started?
It really is just about, as you said, just getting out there and getting started. And I found that having the right people around you, having your support group, whoever that is. So if you don't have a coach, if you don't have that cheerleader, if you don't have somebody to turn to, then get those people as soon as possible. Get them on your team, just somebody to help support you. Absolutely, because passion needs momentum. You got to keep your momentum.
Love it. And I would say, by the way, that there are different personalities for coaches. I'm a kind of a gentle, nurturing, joyful coach. But we had on our Awakened CEO conversation a few weeks ago, a lady named Beatrice Bruno, who is the drill sergeant of life and actually has been a drill sergeant in the Army, I believe. So if you want a kick booty coach, Beatrice or my own Stephanie might be a really good person for you. Stephanie has a little more fire energy than I do. And some people work really, really well when they've got somebody being very direct with them and telling them to get off the couch and get into action. And she's a little bit better at that than I am. I'm a little more nurturing and she's a little more direct, which can be a tremendous advantage. I know I've certainly had it to be an advantage at my company over the last year or so that we've been working with each other. Stephanie, next question, please.
This is a two-parter, so I'll go with one part first.
Okay.
What about GoFundMe used for crowdfunding?
I really like GoFundMe. It's one of my 3 favorite crowdfunding campaigns. The other 2, or platforms rather, the other 2 being Kickstarter and Indiegogo. I did an office hours presentation on crowdfunding, office hours number 76. So it was just 6 or 8 weeks ago, which you can go take a look at and listen to, and you'll gain a lot of insights on crowdfunding and how those 3 primary platforms, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and GoFundMe, are different. And I have actually run GoFundMe campaigns before when some people that I was associated with really needed some outside support and needed some donations, and we used GoFundMe for that. So I'm a big fan of GoFundMe. Did you say there was a second part to that question, Stephanie?
Yes, about leveraging the campaign. How do I make my campaigns more effective?
Generally speaking, The advice that I give to anybody almost for every situation where you don't have a lot of personal experience yourself is what I call the 3-expert rule. The 3-expert rule says go talk to 3 experts in the area that you are seeking to gain experience in and see what they have to say. If 2 out of the 3 agree with each other, then you get to decide whether you want to go with the minority opinion or the majority opinion. If all 3 disagree with each other, then you get to decide, whether or not you need to seek other experts before going forward. And of course, if they all agree with each other, that's a pretty good indication that you've gotten expert advice and you have a consensus. So generally speaking, it's to reach out for that expertise. So my advice to you is go find people who have executed successful GoFundMe campaigns or other crowdfunding campaigns and seek their advice. Get them on their team. Let them help you design the campaign itself and then execute the campaign. And there are 2 different steps to that. Mostly crowdfunding isn't about just design and launch. It's about design and launch and execution. So the launch event, there's particular things that you want to do, such as seed the funding, because nobody wants to be the first one in. I'd much rather invest in something that's had 11 investors for a total of $250 than no investors for no dollars or 1 investor for $5. So you definitely want to seed the campaign because that gives you a little bit of social proof and really takes away of any subconscious hesitation or resistance that somebody might have to contributing to your particular cause. And in the execution of the campaign, you want to make sure that you're reaching out to everybody periodically, and that may mean reaching out to them every day or every other day while your campaign is active, to keep it at the top of their mind and continually ask for referrals, additional donations, for them to share the opportunity to contribute with members of their community, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter, or Pinterest, or wherever, and just continue in the conversation every single day. I remember a campaign a year and a half ago or so. I don't remember what the campaign was about, but the guy who was running the campaign ran a 31-day campaign and had a different video every single one of the 31 days. So every time that you went on there, he put out an email. For whatever reason, I think I invested or contributed $10 or $20. And so I became on the list and I got his emails. And every single day for the next 28, 29 days, he had a different video up. I mean, he really played it. So it's not just about design where you need a good video and some good content to go on the page. And it's not just about the launch where you send it out to your community and everybody that you know and try to inspire them to contribute. But it really is about the execution, as is most things in business. It's you just don't throw it out there and let it sit. You tweak it. Even if you're a fisherman, you throw a line in the water, you just don't let the line sit in the water a lot of times. Sometimes you play with it a little bit to try to attract the audience a little bit more. So hopefully that was helpful to you, and I wish you a great deal of success on your GoFundMe campaign or whatever crowdfunding platform you choose to use. Next, anything to add to that, Stephanie? And then the next question, if you like.
I've been sitting here nodding for the last couple of meetings. I just keep nodding so emphatically. It was just so right on the leveraging. There's so many different things you can do with campaigns to make them effective, and I think that so many people tend to forget all those. The devil is in the details, Mom used to say, right?
Yeah, very good.
You said something that I was hoping that you could expound on.
Okay.
You said something, the 3-expert rule.
Yeah.
And with that I'm working with a nonprofit right now, and that's something that I was talking to them about, and I realized how important that is, and I'm not sure that everybody understands that. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'll repeat it. The bottom line is that in business, we are challenged with, faced with the opportunity to do a lot of things in business that we have never done before. We may have never raised capital. We may have never been a salesperson. We may never have, tried to close the books or read financial statements, or we may never have had the opportunity to hire contractors and or employees. mean, it really depends on your experience that you bring into the business. But the bottom line, no matter how much experience you bring into business, the odds are pretty darn good that you're going to be given the opportunity to do something that you have never done before, and you don't have any relevant experience in that whatsoever. And that's why I think the 3 expert rule is most important, because if you rely on just one expert, then you're just getting one person's opinion. And in my experience, experts disagree. So if you go to the doctor and you get a diagnosis for surgery, for example, or for some protocol of treatment, I'm a big fan of second opinions, because very bright people have good answers, but they don't have all the answers. Lord knows I've been in business for 50 years now, and I still don't have all the answers. I am delighted with the team that I have that's on the call, Stephanie and Marcel, because they come up with ideas and perspectives that I don't come up with. And you will find people in your life who come up with great ideas that you probably would have never come up with yourself, just because of culture and experience, and probably just because God doesn't give every good idea to just one person. He spreads them around a little bit. So you never know who's going to have the next great idea. Maybe it's you, maybe it's somebody else on your team, maybe it's the kid next door, maybe it's your grandma. I mean, you never know where that next great idea is going to come from in business. So we extrapolate that down to the 3 expert rule, and we know that the experts don't always agree. Lawyers don't always agree about what the best course of action is. Doctors don't always agree about what the best protocol for treatment is. Business consultants don't always agree on what your next strategy should be. And so I encourage you to use the 3 expert rule until you find somebody that that you're in sync with, that you can really trust, and then get them to be your mentor, your advisor, and follow their advice and work with them and collaborate with them. Another rule that I have that's almost an oxymoron or a paradox with the 3 expert rule is to follow your Sherpa up the mountain. So once you are sure that you have selected a guide who knows what they're doing, then take their advice and follow their advice as you move up to the mountain of business. Follow their path, because if they know how to get you to the top, then take their advice. And then ask experts along the way if you feel like, for whatever reason, your antennas start buzzing a little bit and you think you could gain significant value from a second or a third opinion. I really think that that's important. I want to take just a second now and talk a little bit about who we are here at the Hoyt Management Group. Our distinctions are that we really focus on the whole person with the Awakened CEO system. We want you to get the support that you want, that you need, that you can use, and that you can afford in your business. And our support services are primarily that we are a planning and execution firm with a very heavy emphasis on execution. I talked about execution a little bit earlier in some of the introductory remarks there, but we are having consulted with, I think, maybe 400 or 500 businesses. What we know is that businesses generally don't fail because of a lack of an idea, and they generally don't fail because of the lack of a plan. They usually fail because they can't execute. And it is really about the execution. As I said earlier, it's about 1% having a vision, about 1 or 2% knowing where your status is and being able to create a plan, and then gathering the resources for that. And it's 97% executing day after day after day after day. So what we do at the Awakened CEO community, in the Awakened CEO community and in our company, is help you not only create plans, but we stay with you to help you implement and execute the plans that we've helped you create. I also want to make sure to invite you again to the Awakened CEO conversation that we have this Wednesday, July the 8th, with our special guest, Jeffrey Flam, a great CEO that I am really looking forward to talking about next Wednesday. And next office hours will be next Monday, June the 13th. The subject is going to be sales scripting, and I am pleased to announce that Stephanie May is going to be doing the office hours next week. We're going to collaborate on the presentation a little bit today, and she asked for the opportunity, and I really want to encourage her to have the opportunity. So she'll be doing the office hours presentation, and we're going to flip the roles a little bit, and I'll be the one asking questions and adding a color commentary, as it were. And she's going to talk about sales scripting, because because she knows a lot more about sales training and sales scripting than I do, having been a professional in that area and a professional sales coach for many, many years. If you have a topic that you would like for us to address, then let me know at paulsurvey.com, and who knows, maybe we'll read the book or create the presentation around the topic that you would like for us to address in coming office hours sessions. With that brief little comment or message from our sponsor, so to speak, let's go back into questions and answers and discussion topics. Next question, Stephanie.
Okay. I'm getting closer to publishing my book and fleshing out my keynote speech content. Do you have any advice for launching a book and leveraging it for the speaking portion of my business?
Yeah, I do, because I've published several books and have learned a lot. I remember one of the first books that I published in 2004, a book called The Foundation Factor. I talked to a guy who was an author and asked him for his advice, and he said, 2 pieces of advice are more important than anything else when it comes to having a good book. And those are, number 1 is get a proofreader. Make sure that you have an editor if you need it, and a proofreader. At a minimum, have a proofreader to make sure that you don't have any typos and grammar issues in your book, somebody to assist with the format and the content of the book. And the second piece of advice he really gave me was make sure that you have a good book cover design, because it's the book cover design that will make that book jump off the shelves if you're on the shelf at a bookshelf. It'll make it jump off the page if you're on Amazon or you're selling it off your own website. And it will make it jump off the table at the back of the room if you're giving a keynote speech and you're giving away your book or you're selling your book from the back of the room. So number 1 and number 2 pieces of advice when it comes to any book is make sure that it's a quality that you want it to be through proper editing and proofreading. And number 2, make sure it has a great book cover design. Now, I would add to that, by the way, is make sure it has a good interior design as well. As it turns out, it's not just about the book cover, but when they open it up and flip through the pages, you make sure that it's got a good interior design. And usually that's, endorsements and testimonials in the first couple of pages, and then the copyright pages and the table of contents and all of that stuff. So make sure it's laid out as a book that you would expect a book to be laid out, and make sure that the typeface is big enough for people to read, and that it's laid out on the page so that it's easy to read. People like a lot of white space these days, much more, I think, than they ever did before, because we're used to seeing so much white space on websites. So you have to make sure that you pay attention to the interior book design. And that's kind of the preparation of making sure that you have a quality product to sell and or to give away to the marketplace. Second step is the launch itself. You only get an opportunity to launch a book once, and I encourage you to pay attention to that launch event. You can orchestrate a launch event like I did with my last book to achieve a bestseller status. And you can achieve a bestseller status on Amazon and other platforms as well with a reasonable amount of effort. It does take a lot of planning, and it does take some expense and money to manage the project to go after that if you want to go after that. But you only get to launch a book once, so I would encourage you to leverage that as much as possible for your own marketing purposes. In the case of my last book, which was The Practice of Awakening to the First Light of Joy, which was my second inspirational book, we had the book prepared some 30 days, it was more like 90 days before the launch, and went out to a lot of different partners to get their cooperation on a day of launch event for them to send out to their networks and their lists information about the book and encourage people to buy the book. And they contributed things that I could give away to people who bought the book on the day of launch. So we really made a launch event out of it. And all of that was necessary, I believe, in order to achieve the Amazon bestseller status. So you get to decide, what sort of a launch event that you want. If you want a bestseller campaign, then that takes a little more planning and preparation. I'd be happy to talk to you about that, one-on-one. And I've got some excellent people to refer you to who helped me with my book launches as well, who may be able to help you with your book launch. The third thing with regards to the book is that it really does help with a keynote speech, and it really helps if the book itself is related to the keynote speech. So for example, if your name's Dave Logan and you're doing a book on tribal leadership, then that can be the keynote speech. You want to have them to be in sync with each other as much as possible, which gives you the opportunity to sell books at the back of the room whenever you have the keynote speech, and really increases your brand awareness over your topic of the day. So whatever your keynote speech is, if you can make the book on that same topic, that can be most helpful. And here's a little tip for you. Sometimes the best way to write a book is to deliver a keynote speech and record it and transcribe it so that you can create the speech around that. And if you give the speech, several times, you can record it and transcribe it each time, and that can become the basis for your speech or for the book that comes around that. Not every book needs to be 250 pages or 300 pages. You can have a very successful book at 50 to 75 to 100 pages as well, and that can just be taking a keynote speech and then elaborating on that and enhancing it to take that keynote speech and turn it into a particular book. Now, by the way, all of that was kind of assuming that you weren't going to work with a major publisher. If it's your intention to work with a major publisher, then the sequence with which you do all of that stuff that I just talked about is much, much different. You put out typically a book proposal or a book concept to a publisher to see if they will adopt it and perhaps even give you an advance for writing a book in the first place. And then you deliver a manuscript to your publisher. They are responsible for the interior book design. They're responsible for the exterior book cover design. They're responsible for the marketing plan and the launch plans around the book, for getting endorsements and testimonials for the book, etc. They take on a lot of that responsibility. And because they take on all that responsibility, and they may actually pay you up front for it, you may actually only receive 10 to 20% of the retail price of each book. So if your book sells for $15, you may get $1.50 for each book that's sold. If your book sells for $25, you may get $2.50 for each book that's sold. So they take a lot of the risk. They do a tremendous amount of the work associated with it, and as a result, they get a lot of the reward. My caution with regards to that is make sure that you have rights to the content, because some publishers have complete rights to all of the contents of the book, which means that you can't publish the content in any other way, on your website or even in a speech without their permission to do so. So make sure that you take care of your intellectual property rights when you're working with a publisher themselves. And of course, there are people right in the middle of that, in between self-publishing and having an official publisher. There are what they call vanity presses or collaborative presses that will work with you to allow you to retain all of the intellectual property rights, and they do a lot of the work, but they also charge typically a fee for their service, where publishers generally do not. So right in the middle of doing it all by yourself and having it done for you is, of course, the do with you model, which is somebody who will work with you in a collaborative fashion to do the book cover design, to do the interior design, to do the editing and the proofreading of the book, but they will typically charge a fee for their services because you're right in the middle of doing it yourself or having other people do it. So, and I have some good resources for you if you want to contact me privately, of people that I've worked with before who've helped me with my own book launch programs and my book cover design and interior book design. And a colleague of mine named Randy Peyser, spelled P-E-Y-S-E-R, has a company called Author One Stop, and she assists a lot of people in finding the resources that they need to edit and publish their books, and will line you up with getting book proposals and perhaps finding a publisher as well. So you're welcome to email me or give me a call offline, and I'll provide contact information there. And hopefully that was helpful to you. Next, are you any comments, Stephanie, first of all, and then next questions, if not?
A couple comments is that books are still part of your marketing, right? They are still part of proving your visibility, your credibility, your viability. So there should be, or could be, I should say, some kind of call to action. whether it's a hard or soft call, something. If by the time I'm done reading the book and if I like it, where do I go for more information? How do I follow up? What can I do with this information? How can I implement it? How can I take it to another level? So some of those questions could be addressed in your book. I also know that when I wrote my book, at the end of it, and I had a close friend read it, I discovered that the whole premise of my book, the call to action that I told everybody in my book to take, I failed to take myself when I wrote the book. So sometimes we forget to practice what we preach. So just get as much feedback as you can on the book. One of my mentors always told me to find the most negative, the biggest naysayer out there, and find out all the negative that you can, and then move forward with that. Because once you get over, if you can get past their objections, you've got it made.
I love that.
So there you go.
Now let me jump in there for just a little bit, because you inspired me to remind people that, hey, not everybody's going to like what you do. They're not going to want your products and services. They might not even like you. And that's all right, because you can't please everybody. You have to pick a particular market niche, be true to your passion, your heart, your style of working with other people, and go find the people and attract the people who really do resonate with your products and services and your particular style. So there's always going to be somebody that thinks you're crazy, and always somebody that thinks you're, who doesn't like your products and services, and we just bless them and let them go their own way. But we find the people that we can help, and we have people that we can support, and who do really appreciate the advice and the counsel on the products and services that we supply to them to help them achieve their dreams. Go find those people and don't worry about the rest of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Next question, Stephanie.
This is actually from one of our clients.
Uh-huh.
They're struggling with really determining when is the right time to contact an attorney. And I find that many of our clients are in the same boat. When they come up across something and they get one opinion from one expert, and sometimes they don't follow that 3-expert rule as we were chatting about earlier. But if you have, how do you determine when is the right time to seek out an attorney to find out, is my business name viable? Do I have to contact an attorney if I'm going to start an LLC? Some of these type of decisions that we make as we're forming the business, we put off contacting an attorney until it's too late.
Boy, that is a really, really great question. And I'm not sure I have, a great answer for that. So I'll do my best here. So number one is, when other members of your team are saying maybe we should talk to an attorney, that's a pretty good sign that you should talk to an attorney. As I always say, I strongly suggest that every CEO has a mentor or a guide that they're working with in their business. I, by the way, always have at least 2 coaches at the same time. There's been times when I've had, 3 or 4 coaches at the same time. So get the support that you need. Always have a mentor or a coach or an advisor on your team, and be sure to ask them. And you may be a member of a masterminding group, or some other group coaching scenario where you can ask the question of 5 or 6 or 7 people, at the same time, which I strongly recommend too as part of your support community. So ask the people around you what they would do and whether they think that you should talk to an attorney, and which attorneys that they would recommend that you talk to. I had a gentleman just this morning on a call ask me that very question. He knew he needed to go to an attorney. His question was not, should I work with an attorney, but it was, who do you recommend that I work with? And I'm going to pass along the names of 3 different attorneys that he might have a conversation with and consider for his particular business. And his particular business, he's a seasoned executive. He needs to work out a very complex deal where he is thinking about joining a company as a minority partner, putting in a little money and being an investor, working with the company as a contractor or an employee, and having a license to work with the company in some other ways. So it's a complex deal, and he knows he needs an attorney. And and so I'm happy to give him the names of several attorneys that he can work with there. So generally, follow the advice of the people around you. If you question whether or not you should talk to an attorney about something, that's usually a pretty good sign that you should talk to an attorney, because most people have some hesitation and resistance to working with attorneys because of the language issues, but mostly because of the money. Attorneys charge $300, $400, $500 an hour. I know attorneys here in Silicon Valley that charge $1,000 an hour. So, making the decision to go to an attorney is a decision to invest in your business in some way. But I encourage you to do that, sooner than later. If you start to have a sense that you maybe should talk to an attorney, to me, that's a pretty darn good sign that you should, unless all of your advisors tell you, no, you really don't need to. You can just go this route and get it done without an attorney. There's a difference, by the way, between working with an attorney to form a business and working with an attorney to review a contract or some other issue. There are some things that you can automate, like through LegalZoom or through another company that we know of that will help you form a particular business. And that's a difference in between getting legal advice. You can't automate legal advice. You actually have to have a conversation with an attorney to do that. And if you're wondering, it may be that Legal Shield might be a good thing for you to invest in. It's not very much a month for your business. If you have a bunch of little things, you might be able to get some good advice through Legal Shield as well, which just costs far less than getting 1 hour of a competent attorney's time. So hopefully that was helpful to you. Stephanie, do you have anything to add, or you want to move on to the next question?
Yes, got a couple more questions here, hoping we have time for.
Mm-hmm.
One of the questions is really about coachability and trusting the process. And this actually came up with me and another one of our clients last week, in that recently I was at a workshop and I found myself resisting to the process of the workshop itself. And I was reminded how important it is that when we're taken outside our comfort zone, when we're trying new things and learning new things, how important it is to trust the process. If you hire an expert who's going to help you with something, how do we let go of that resistance in order to, how do we get around that resistance in order to continue to move forward?
Yeah, the law of courage says that sometimes you can't think your way through something. Sometimes you just have to launch and go for it and be bold. Being bold and courageous and brave and daring are essential talents that every business owner has to have. So you got to ask yourself, am I doing this because I'm afraid, or is there a really, really good reason why I'm having this resistance? Because it's always a question that I think you should ask yourself. I don't ever recommend that somebody just do something because somebody says do it, that you jump just because somebody says jump. You got to ask yourself, is there real danger here? Is there really fear of getting screwed up? Or am I just afraid of hearing what somebody else is going to say, and I'm afraid of taking the next step? So always assess the risk. If somebody tells you to tie a mortar to the top of your head and let it off like some idiot did, over the weekend and killed themselves because they were probably had too much to drink and you were celebrating too much with the fireworks, it's a clear sign that, they should have had a little more resistance and a little more hesitation there, and they just didn't think it through. So that's always a bit of a paradox. Am I hesitating and resisting because I'm a little bit afraid, and it's really courage and daring and bravery and boldness that will take me through to the next step? Or am I having this hesitation and resistance for a darn good reason, and maybe I ought to take a step back? You get to decide. You have to decide, in everything that comes up for you in business and in life. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm not sure it was, but I find myself having that challenge many times. I sense a little bit of hesitation or resistance, and I make the decision whether to go forward or to pause just for a minute and think things through before I go forward, or whether to, run away like crazy. Sometimes I run away, sometimes I pause and then go for it. Sometimes I'm bold and daring and brave and courageous and go for it right away. You get to choose as well.
Beautiful.
Next question.
I'm developing a custom entrepreneurial pipeline for my book, and thanks to Paul who taught me about that. Do you have any advice for making a key figure or graphic that illustrates key knowledge in your book?
Wow, advice for that. I'm not a graphically gifted person, so I have found great benefit in working with other people who are gifted, graphically. I oftentimes will sketch things out for myself, and I'll share it with, a graphics designer or somebody that's quite an artist, and they'll take a look at that and say, well, you don't know what you're doing, you're not really talented here, but I get it. I get the main concept. So do your best to represent the main concept, as best you possibly can with your graphic abilities. Just grab a sheet of paper and doodle on it and scratch and try 4 or 5 different things, and then make a copy of it and send it to 2 or 3 different graphics designers and see what they have to say, to get the design for that. Recently, by the way, we've had a lot of success with 99 Designs. Our logo for the Awaken CEO community and the Awaken CEO system came out of a 99 Designs campaign that we did, that Stephanie and I did. She's got a lot more experience in that than I do. And you can get some pretty darn good things designed for just a few $100 when you use that platform, and I'm sure there's other crowdsourcing platforms that are available for you out there as well. Fiverr is one of them that you can do things with rather inexpensively, although I don't think it works the same as 99 Designs does. So there's a lot of great graphics talent out there. If you don't have it yourself, then I recommend that you go out and get it, sketch out some of your initial concepts so they get an idea about what the concept is, and then let their creativity flow and let their creativity, inspire you and inspire a whole bunch of other people too. Stephanie, anything to add to that?
I whenever I'm looking at a brand new graphic job of anything, I tend to really get out there and look at what's out there. Just looking, as you're driving down the street, you'll notice there's 100 signs in one block, and sometimes you'll notice combinations of colors that you do like, combinations you don't like, fonts that you like. Do you like cartoons? Do you want a 50s look? Do you want a real modern? So many times just looking at what's out there will really help you figure out what you don't want, which helps lead you to what you do want. And sometimes just letting all of these images just kind of bombard you to see what resonates and kind of what feels good gives you a really good starting point. It's a good starting point.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I appreciate that tremendously. That's why we ask multiple experts or get the advice from multiple advisors, because people have good ideas. Stephanie has good ideas. I have good ideas. Other people have good ideas too. So I really invite every one of you to get in the habit of asking multiple people their opinions and their perspectives, because you never know where that next great idea is coming from. We've got just a few minutes before the top of the hour. Stephanie, do we have any other questions, or anybody have their hand up?
We do not. I think we've got everybody.
Well, in that case, I want to thank you all for attending another live group coaching session here on Office Hours. I want to remind you that on Wednesday, July the 8th at 6 p.m. Pacific, we'll have another Awakened Conversation with special guest Jeffrey Flam. And next Monday, July the 13th, we'll have an Office Hours presentation on sales scripting led by Stephanie May. You'll want to make sure to tune in and get that one, because sales scripting is really, really important to your sales success. And so until we meet again, until next Wednesday or next Monday, this is Paul Hoyt saying goodbye on behalf of the entire Awaken CEO team, wishing you a most marvelous and prosperous day. Bye-bye.